baby. Welcome to the crossover show of Dylan Knows and Comic Hall. Yeah. There's not really a crossover show because I do both, and basically I'm just going to do one after the other. So that was Uptight by Stevie Wonder, young Stevie Wonder, as it were. I wanted to play Take Me to the River by Talking Heads, but I think I played that one a couple episodes ago, so I figured, and because I was getting ready to say, it's like, you know what, screw it, I'm going to play it anyway. And I got to it, and I was like, this looks awfully familiar. Maybe I shouldn't play it. So I said, we'll do something different. So I was Uptight by Stevie Wonder when he was little Stevie Wonder. Anyway, so hello and welcome to a brand new episode of Dylan Knows. A little later than I wanted to get started at, but as always, when we have a family party at my wife's house, my in-laws' house, I should say, we tend not to leave until 8 o'clock, which is an hour too late usually for me. But, I love my in-laws and all that stuff, but sometimes, it's just like, all right, let's just get moving. But, the kids are having a good time with their cousins, and everybody was trying to leave here. But, anyway, it doesn't matter. We're here now. I got 2 viewers. Hey, guys, thanks for watching. So, you're all probably wondering, why the hell are you by yourself this week? Dylan, last week, well, the 4 people who watched the show last week, we heard that it was going to be Jerry Fletcher this week. And unfortunately, as you can see, Jerry Fletcher is not here. Jerry Fletcher has had the week from hell, and I'm not going to even get into that because that's her thing, and I don't want her to have to, explain it or whatever, but she's had a bad week, and she said, hey, can I just bail on it for this week, and I need a chance to just have family recovery time. I was like, it's cool, it's a little dinky show I've been doing for almost 5 years. It's all right. It's 5 years, 55, 20, yeah, because it'll be 5 years once I get to September, the 250 range. But yeah, so here I am solo, and the funny thing was I wasn't planning on being solo. I had already started my list of the top 90 songs, in my opinion, top 15 actually, 90 songs in my opinion. However, today I just went through, I still save stuff on Facebook that I still and stuff I retweet on Twitter, and things I find interesting, and then I also do it to talk about what's going on in the world and stuff that I like to do, so, and talk about on this show. So got about 2 more pages of stuff, so it's actually some interesting stuff in here. Again, it's a whole potpourri of stuff which I always throw out there. Get some food, some science, some comic book stuff, some Pokemon stuff, deaths, holidays, weird stories, fun stories, happy stories, sad stories, a little bit of everything. So the first thing I want to talk about, and I've been sort of remiss in this because it's not that far away now, obviously with my Spider-Man shirt, and if you've ever seen my show or know me, or I just discussed my crossover, the Comic Hall, which I'll get into in a few minutes, I'm a comic book fan. And actually I did a show with MJ Khan where we talked comic books, and it was always the beginning of the month, but we've been having some computer issues the last 2 months or so. So I'm hoping that with Avengers Infinity War coming out the end of the month, maybe we'll get a chance to reconnect, and maybe our computers are finally going to sync up, and maybe it was just some sort of weird astronomical thing that was going on. So we'll see about that. But I also do the Comic Hall, which is a show I'm going to do right after this one, where I talk about the comic books I got this week. And I've been remiss over the last couple weeks because I like to push this for a whole month before it comes out. So here we are. It's April 14th, 2018, and I haven't talked about it once, so we're going to change that right now. So from this point on, every week I'm going to talk about this in some form or another. Free Comic Book Day. For those who don't know what Free Comic Book Day is, the first Saturday in May, it's always the first Saturday in May, is what we call Free Comic Book Day. It was created by comic book store owners back in the early 2000s, back when I worked at Diamond. So I've been there since the inception of Free Comic Book Day. And the basic premise of Free Comic Book Day is pretty obvious. You go to your local comic book store. If they are participating in Free Comic Book Day, you go to your local comic book store and you get free comics. Just walk in, free comics, grab your free comics, walk out if you want to. I'm not recommending that because let me tell you something. Even though it's free for you, the store owners have to pay out to get it, the printing costs and stuff like that. They have to pay out. It's not a lot of money, but still it's some money. So, you know, it's like 25 cents a copy or something like that. But if you want to get, if you're expecting a lot of people there, so you want to buy like 100,000 copies or 100 copies, no, I mean, not that much, like 100 copies or 200 copies or whatever, add that to 25 cents and you're putting out a bit of change to get this. Now, Free Comic Book Day also has multiple comics. I mean, it's not just one or two. It's, if you get all of them, it's up to like upwards of 45 free comics you can get. And then there's also some other free stuff. I heard somewhere, I think this year, there's a free Funko Pop, which I'm really intrigued to find out about. Basically, you go to your local comic book store on Free Comic Book Day, which is the first Saturday of May, which would be May 6th, I think, this year. And you go in, and every store is different. But the one rule that they have is you do not have to purchase anything to get a free comic. If your store is doing that, they're doing it wrong. It's not allowed. That's in the laws that were created by the comic shop owners who created Free Comic Book Day. They said the rule is, our point for doing this is to get people to come into the comic book store and get them to look around and say, hey, this is a really cool place. It's clean, well lit. There's lots of books. Hey, Avengers Infinity War just came out. I'm interested in the Avengers, or I like Black Panther, or I like Spider-Man, or whatever. You go over, you can find, they'll have displays set up. Or if you're not a Marvel fan, if you like DC Comics, Batman's getting married to Catwoman in July, and they're going to be prepping all that in the next few months. So, and in fact, the week of Free Comic Book Day, they're releasing DC Comics Unlimited or something like that. It's a 0 issue that you can buy for 25 cents that has 3 previews of big storylines that are coming up in DC this summer. Batman and Catwoman's wedding, Superman being written by Brian Michael Bendis, and there's one other one I can't think of right now. But that's one, I talked about that one last week. That one has already got over 1 million copies sold, so, or bought by the store owners. So in addition to the free comic, if you want to see what's coming up in DC Comics, if you're a Batman fan or a Superman fan or whatever, you pick that up as well for 25 cents as well. Now, the reason why, as I said, you should buy something is because, as I said, they outlay the money to pay for the free comic books, but you do not have to. I'm not telling you that, oh, God, you have to go to Free Comic Book Day and actually buy something and leave. No, that's not the rule. The reason is to get people into the store, get the free comics, and let them see the store and say, hey, I've never been here before, and take a look around. There are probably going to be special sales going on. My store always does a huge sale. My store also, the guy who runs it, and I've mentioned this a million times also, is the guy who created the Baltimore Comic-Con, and he still runs it. So he's got connections to creators, so he gets 3 to 4 creators in there, and they sign books and pictures, and they do pictures and drawings for you and stuff like that. And you can talk to them, and they're very amenable. And this year they're in a new building. It's their first Free Comic Book Day in their new location, which is huge. It's like 50 times bigger than the store they were in. And so I can't wait to see what they got planned for Free Comic Book Day, because they're probably going to go absolutely bonkers with Free Comic Book Day this year, since it's their first one in their new building. And it's on our main street in Reisterstown, more people to come in and check it out, to become like a member of the Main Street Society. So I'm intrigued for that. Do I buy stuff when I go to Free Comic Book Day? No, because I already spend a shit ton of money at the store 2 to 3 days previous. So I help keep them in business as well. But if you've never been, it would be nice for you to pick up something, but you do not have to. As I said, there's lots of sales that go on. Plus, if there's a creator there, he'll have his or her books out with them, and you can buy that and they'll sign it for you. So again, you do not have to buy anything. and if you don't feel bad about it. It's cool. The main reason we want you to go in there is to go in and check out the comic book stores and get you to say, you know what, a couple weeks down the line, a couple months down the line, you need a birthday present or Christmas present or, whatever. And you're like, you know what, I know they like Spider-Man. Hey, remember the comic book store I went to on Free Comic Book Day? Maybe they got some cool Spider-Man stuff. Or I remember seeing some cool Spider-Man stuff. You go in there and you get some stuff. And then before you know it, you look around a little bit. You see some of the new books that are out. They have lots of trades, toys, cards, manga, all kinds of stuff. And before you know it, you're going to be a regular shopper, which is the main reason they do this. So, and all the big companies do at least one book. Some do two. There's a Marvel, there's a DC, there's an Image, there's an IDW, a Dark Horse, a Boom Studios, a Dynamite one, Archie does one, and there's all kinds of. There's going to be a Sonic book and Batman, Superman, and all kinds of crazy stuff. And they'll have a connection to the Avengers movie as well. They're going to do an Avengers book as well. So, there's all kinds of neat stuff you can pick up. So definitely worth a while. I will be pushing this, and I'll be pushing it again in a Comic Hall show in the next hour and a half or so. So May 6th, whatever the first Saturday in May is, go to your local comic book store and, check it out. If you don't know where your local comic book store is, you go to your search engine and type in the CSLS, or the Comic Shop Locator Service. You type that up, and when the search results pop up, it's probably going to be the first or second one up there. It's Comic Shop Locator Service. You click on that. You go to their website. Up in the corner, there'll be a place to put your zip code. You type your zip code in, hit enter. They'll give you a list of all the comic book stores within about a 20-mile radius of where you are. And then you can click on those and go to their websites and get their hours and directions and pictures of the inside of their store and so on and so forth. So definitely check it out. Free Comic Book Day is coming very soon. The reason why I'm joking about this crossover show, I called the episode the crossover show, is tomorrow night is the last episode of The Walking Dead for this season. Now, they are saying that this is going to be basically, it could be construed as a series finale, even though it isn't. They've already been renewed for another season. But they're wrapping up all the storylines that they've had over the last 2 seasons with this war with Negan. And they say everybody has a ending. So either they die or something else happens, or they have a happy ending or a blah ending or whatever. And it's going to end, and then there's going to be new showrunners, and I'm assuming there's probably going to be a time jump when the new season starts next October, or not next, this October coming up, because they're currently filming season 9 right now, I think. And the crossover thing is, so after that episode of The Walking Dead ends, Morgan, who's a character on The Walking Dead, is going to be leaving The Walking Dead. He's not going to be in next season, not in the 9th season, and he's going to cross over to the companion series Walking Dead that was created called Fear the Walking Dead, which is on its 4th season, 3rd or 4th season, somewhere around there. And they're doing a whole brand new thing. It's 4th season. It's almost like the first 3 seasons was just a prequel, and they're going to do a humongous time jump also to put it in sync with The Walking Dead. So you're looking at a good probably 2-3 year time jump before Walking Dead does their 2 to 3 year time jump, which is funny anyway. So Morgan is going to walk away from The Walking Dead, and then he'll appear in Fear the Walking Dead, which is going to come on after The Walking Dead. I don't think Talking Dead is on until after Fear the Walking Dead. I don't know that for 100% certain or not. And so he's going to take over that. But the Fear the Walking Dead, I stopped watching after about halfway through the 2nd season. I just couldn't get into it. And I've been reading the episode descriptions on Wikipedia, so I kind of know what's been happening. It just gives you a brief rundown, so you don't really know. You can use your imagination, obviously, but you don't actually haven't physically watched it and seen the stuff happen. You see words on a page that says this is what happened. But that doesn't matter, because what they're trying to do is they're trying to get new viewers in. And with this crossover with The Walking Dead, they're trying to get the Walking Dead fans that have run away from Fear the Walking Dead to come on to Fear the Walking Dead, bringing in Morgan. And they're also Scott Gimple, who's been the showrunner for The Walking Dead since season 3, right? hold on, no, season 4. Since season 4 of The Walking Dead is now taking over as the showrunner on Fear the Walking Dead in their season 4. And so Walking Dead is going to be getting a new showrunner next season, so that's also going to be part of probably their time jump or whatever. And so Scott Gimple's taking over like that, and he's going to introduce a whole bunch of new characters. Jenna Elfman, who hasn't been in a show for a while, since Dharma and Greg, at least that I can remember, is going to be in it. And there's a few other, not big actors, but actors you've probably heard of before. I can't think of their name. One is from Lost, I think. She's going to be there as well. So we're going to have some new characters, and then some of the characters from the original Fear the Walking Dead are still going to be lingering around too, but there's going to be time jump, and the characters are all going to be different, stuff like that. So we'll see what happens. So that was my joke about that, was that, you know, with that crossover coming over, since I haven't been doing the comic call during the week like I've usually been doing it. I usually do the comic call between Wednesday and Friday, and I do Dylan Knows Saturday or Sunday, depending on the guest or whatever I got going on in my life. Like the last 3 weeks, I've been doing the comic call on a Saturday usually. The main reason why is because, and I talked about this a couple weeks ago, but I'm going to bring it up again. My daughter, who's 11, I've finally have gotten her into the Marvel Cinematic Universe. It's taken a while, but I've gotten her into the MCU. And we had a movie marathon a couple months ago, and I showed her Iron Man. She'd already seen Guardians of the Galaxy, but I showed her Iron Man, and I showed her Thor, and she was hooked on that. And then we saw Black Panther, and she was hooked on that also, and she liked that. So she had seen at that time 4 of the Marvel Cinematic Universe films. So in order to get her caught up so that we can watch Infinity War together in a couple weeks, we've been running through all of the Marvel Cinematic Universe except for 2, because I didn't know how long it was going to take. So I just wanted to really hit the ones that were really a big to do in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Incredible Hulk is underrated, and I have to see it again. I've only seen it once, and I have to see it again. But the reason why I don't consider it a real important part of the MCU is because the actor who played Bruce Banner, whose name is it's Edward something. I can't think of it right now. He's funny because it's a local guy, local actor. I can't think of his name right now. Edward Norton didn't want to come back and play the character anymore in the MCU movies. He just, I guess, he didn't know what he was signed up for. When he signed up for it, he didn't know that he was going to have to do the Avengers 2, and show up in any other movies that the Hulk's supposed to be in. He didn't want to get pigeonholed into a role like that, so he backed out, and Mark Ruffalo joined the Avengers. So I don't really consider that even though it is, because Robert Downey Jr.'s Tony Stark shows up, as does William Hurt's General Thunderbolt Ross, who shows up later in the Civil War. They're part of the MCU, but Edward Norton is not, because he left because he didn't want to be pigeonholed as the Hulk, and they brought Mark Ruffalo in. So I skipped that one. We're going to come back and we'll watch it eventually. And we skipped Iron Man 3 also, because technically that really isn't a part of the MCU. Yeah, it deals a little bit with Iron Man's post-traumatic stress, but the story itself doesn't really have a connection to the overall story arc that's going on in the MCU. So after Thor, I went back and showed her Iron Man 2, and then Captain America, and then the Avengers, and then Thor the Dark World, and then Winter Soldier, and everything. So I've gone through everything. So we watched Thor Ragnarok last night. So we've been watching on Friday, since you can't really watch it during the week since they're like 2 hours long and they have school the next day. We've been watching on Fridays and Saturdays when we can. So last Friday we watched, I want to say Doctor Strange, but that might be wrong, or Civil War. I think it was Civil War last Friday. And then the Friday before that was one of the other ones we watched. So the last few Fridays we've been watching this Marvel Cinematic Universe stuff, and that's fine because I want to get her excited about it, and she is now. So we only have one movie left. It's Spider-Man Homecoming, and I I think that's an important part, because even though Spider-Man showed up in Civil War, it still has more of a connection to the overall story arc because of Spider-Man's appearance in the trailers, and the commercials show a bit more of his robotic Spider-Man suit, and we got to kind of get into how he got that, and that sort of happens in Homecoming. So, you know, Robert Downey Jr. is in it, Michael Keaton's in it. Hey, you can't go wrong with that. And of course, Marissa Tomei. So I'm hoping maybe next week I'll be able to get the Comic Hall back online. But the last couple weeks I've been doing I didn't do it last week. It was 2 weeks ago. I did a back-to-back episode. So this isn't technically a new crossover, but it was mainly the joke because of The Walking Dead, Fear the Walking Dead. They've been pushing the crossover there. But stay tuned. So after the show, I'll give you my Comic Hall. Let me just give you a sneak preview of what it is. I will be discussing these comics right here. Ooh, ooh, ooh. Pretty cool, huh? So stay tuned for that. Not a great week, to be honest, but there's some interesting stuff in there. There's actually two really interesting things in there, but we'll talk about that in a little bit. Since I'm just on a comic book mood, and then I'll get into other stuff. I promise. I will. I just want to keep pushing the Batman Catwoman wedding. I am absolutely loving Tom King's run on Batman right now. When Rebirth started a couple years ago, he came on, actually it was last year, he came on and he's been writing the hell out of Batman because I hadn't been enjoying it with Scott Snyder writing it. So when Tom King came on, I hadn't started reading it because I was still like, I'm still getting Batman, but I'm going to read some other stuff. I'm reading Superman, I'm happy about Wonder Woman, I was happy about stuff like that. I was like, okay, but then I just sat down and I on vacation last year and read like 8 issues of Batman in a row. It was automatically sucked in, and then that's like one of the only comics that I read religiously now, so I'm up to date on that. So it's an actual really good story arc where Tom King's trying to get Batman to, he's writing a different style of Batman, because everybody can write Batman as the brooding, hiding in the cave. Batman is the real Bruce Wayne. Bruce Wayne's the disguise type of Batman, and you got all his bad guys, and the Joker always shows up. Blah. For those who don't know, I'm not a big fan of the Joker. I think he's overrated and overused. But this run has been good because it's been showing a more human side of Batman, as has Detective, to be honest, because Batman has been working with a team, and he's a member of the Justice League and stuff like that, but this is a team of people that are close to him, friends from when he was growing up. Katie King, Batwoman, his former has got Robin and Clayface, a former villain of his, and a few of his former proteges and stuff like that have all come together and have helped him fight crime in Gotham. So he's been trying to become more of a family thing. And then what made it all solidified for Batman to realize he's got to do something. They did a really good setup for the Batman Catwoman relationship, because they've always been playing with that relationship for the longest time in the comics. And they set up a 2-parter which showed that Batman and Catwoman are in a relationship. Basically, it's at the beginning of a relationship because they're having sex everywhere they can on rooftops, and they are enjoying each other's company, not just in a sexual way, but other stuff as well. And he's had her work with him in various ways to be an operative of his as well. And he's been around her a lot. So he did a crossover with The Flash. And The Flash, a while back when the New 52 was introduced, did a series called Flashpoint, where the Flash changed history and turned it into a darker future where Atlantis and Paradise Island are at war with each other. And the Batman in that timeline is not Bruce. It's actually his father, Thomas. Now, what happened that fatal night was Bruce was the one that was shot and killed by the burglar, not Thomas and Martha. They survived. And this is where the story was excellent. So Thomas became the gun-toting, violent, gritty Batman that everybody seems to want. I don't. I like the Batman I have. The detective who uses other means besides guns and doesn't kill But this Batman does, and it's Tom, because his son, you're not supposed to outlive your son. He was 10 freaking years old when he got shot and killed. You're not supposed to outlive your son. Your son is supposed to outlive you. And so he's angry, so he does his war on crime. His mother goes psychotic and becomes the Joker of that timeline, which is actually a Joker story I wouldn't mind seeing. And you get a little bit of it in the Flashpoint, not much, but you get a little bit of it in Flashpoint, the story. I wouldn't mind seeing that, because that is kind of a unique take on the Joker. All this other Joker stories is just, they're basically the same. I mean, they try to do a different spin on things. And even Tom King did a spin on the Joker, which actually, and that could just be because I love his stuff, it was not as bad. But still, it was just kind of like, oh God, the Joker again. And now the Joker is going to be involved in this wedding fiasco thing that he's going to be working on. I was like, okay, I'm really getting tired of the Joker. But I trust Tom King, so we'll see what happens. So in that Flashpoint world, Flash was able to set the timeline correct. Some slight little changes here and there, which created the New 52. But before he left, Tom and Flash was talking to Thomas about the Bruce of his, how his son grew up and became the man he was, and Batman and all this stuff, and obsessed with fighting crime, stuff like that. His father, before the end of that Flashpoint dimension, wrote a note to his son and gave it to the Flash to give to him when he goes back to the past. So he gives, once Barry gets to the real DC timeline after Flashpoint's timeline gets destroyed, he gives Batman the note from his dad. And it's sort of, it's what Bruce does. He wants to impress his parents, and he misses his parents and stuff like that. And that was a real heartfelt thing for him. So in this Tom King run, he crossed over with the Flash, where the Flash accidentally takes him to this Flashpoint dimension before it gets destroyed. So Batman is able to actually be face to face with his father, and his father, knowing his history already, they have this amazing father-son conversation, which is all Bruce wanted. And Thomas was like, you did good, living up to protecting Gotham and its people and stuff like that, but you screwed up the fact that you're messing up your own life. And as your dad, I'm telling you, you got to do something about your life. You can't just be obsessed with revenge and stuff like that. You've got to take care of Bruce. My son was Bruce, not Batman. But he didn't say it in a mean way. He was just saying, you need to take care of Bruce Wayne. And that is who you are. Batman is not who you are. Bruce Wayne is who you are. And don't become obsessed like me, and try to move on from that and make yourself happy. It was a fatherly advice to a son who, granted, he had a great surrogate father in Alfred, but to actually hear it from technically your real dad, a version of your real dad at least, it made Batman's mind think a little bit. And after he came back from that adventure, he started changing his ways a little bit, starting to be a little bit more connected emotionally to people. And the biggest thing was to start kind of dating Catwoman. And eventually he proposes to her, and she says yes. And so we're leading up to the wedding, which I think is going to be issue 50 of Batman. And that's out, believe it or not, it's really funny. July 4th is on a Wednesday this year. July 4th is when issue 50 comes out, and that's when the wedding is. So, and that's also when Catwoman #1 comes out, written by Joelle Jones and drawn by Joelle Jones, which is fantastic because she's been doing a good job drawing some of the Batman stuff with Tom King. So it's been a really good run, and I like how Tom King writes the Batman Catwoman relationship. It's a realistic relationship. It's not something like, hey, why don't we decide to just get married? No, it's built. It was built from the beginning of Rebirth to this point, about issue 25, it's right around the time where he proposed. And then, they did a story where it flashed back to the past, and then they went back to the present where they started working out their wedding stuff, and they met up with Superman and Lois because Superman is Batman's best friend, and Catwoman's like, you have to tell him I'm going to make you tell him that we're getting married, because Bruce is like, we don't need to let Superman know. It's okay. And Catwoman's like, yeah, he's your best friend. You need to let him know, like now. And so it's just one of the great two-part stories where it's date night, where Lois and Clark go on a double date with Bruce and Selina. It's hilarious. They go to a fair where it's a superhero theme one. So instead of dressing up like themselves, Bruce dresses up as Superman, and Clark dresses up as Batman with the cowl and everything, and then has glasses over the. It's really funny. And then while they're trying to outdo each other in the games for their women, the women are off to the side just chit-chatting, and Lois pulls out a flask of whiskey, and they start chugging whiskey. It's awesome. It's a great story. And there have been other stuff as well. So the whole thing is going to happen. Issue 50 is when the wedding is going to happen. There's a whole Joker's thing where he's going to try to break up the wedding or whatever. I don't know exactly what's going to happen, but there's going to be problems with that. And then there's Catwoman #1, which is going to come out, spin out of that. And there's going to be some wedding pre-wedding one shots, which look good also. So that's a lot of fun. So I promised I wasn't going to talk about comics. I'll come back to comics in a little bit, but right now let's talk about some other stuff. Let's talk about the story of the day. Chick-fil-A chicken-infused beer. Found this on Facebook a day or so ago. There is a brewery, microbrewery, whatever you want to call it, which has decided that they want to put, I can't think of the word right now. It's infuse. They want to infuse their beer with Chick-fil-A chicken. I guess I don't really know how beer is created. I have a general idea, I guess, but when you make kind of like the fruity beers also that have been the big rage lately, particularly during the summer, you get the big tureen with all the beer with the hops and stuff like that all mixing together in the water and the bitters and so on and so forth. And if you want to add fruit infusions or any type of infusion, coffee infusion, whatever, you drop it into this tureen and let it sit, soak it up for an amount of time, a couple weeks, maybe a month, a day or two. I don't know what it is. So this video has this microbrewery dumping buckets of Chick-fil-A, not the nuggets, but the bigger ones, tenders, I guess you could call them, Chick-fil-A tenders, tossing them into the beer tureen. And I guess they're going to close it up, and then they're going to do their infusion thing where it's going to sit in there for, I don't know, let's just say a month. I'm not exactly 100% certain. My friend Mandy would probably know better about that, who I've done a beer show with a couple times. Maybe I got to do one of those for this summer, try and get her back on. We'll see. That's besides the point. And ask her about, hey, what do you think about chicken-infused beer? I think she's not going to like it. So they're dumping these Chick-fil-A tenders into this tureen of beer and stirring it around. So I guess you stir it around and then you close it and you let the beer soak into the chicken, I guess, which I guess when it soaks enough, it'll start pulling the skin off and the chicken will start getting gushy and stuff like that if you keep it in there long enough. And then eventually you'll drain the beer and the chicken will probably stay in the tureen, and you clean out the chicken and throw it out. But you've got that flavoring in the beer, and then you do whatever else you do, and then you market it and sell it and stuff like that. So beer infused with Chick-fil-A fried chicken tender things. I'm not sure I want to even try that. What about you? See, it turned off somebody. I had 2 viewers. I have 1. This is like, oh my God, he's talking about chicken-infused beer. Disgusting. Click. Today, on this date, April 14th, 1865, our dear President Lincoln was assassinated by John Wilkes Booth while he was watching a play at Ford Theater. What happened after that became, at the time, the biggest manhunt in American history. Lincoln had just literally won the Civil War about 2 weeks before, because Appomattox Day was a couple weeks ago, beginning of April. So he literally had just won the war and ended up getting assassinated by someone who was a Southern, believed in the South, Southern backer. And what's really interesting about the story is, I mean, it's a terrible story. President getting assassinated was one of the, like, not the first one, but one of the first ones to get assassinated. One of the biggest ones. I mean, it's Abraham Lincoln, for God's sakes. There was a book I read a couple summers ago called Manhunt, and I forget who the writer is. But basically, this writer wrote the manhunt for John Wilkes Booth almost as a thriller, but it is a historical nonfiction book using all the information that he has gleaned over a few years and stuff he's read and heard about. He crafted almost like a thriller novel about the manhunt for John Wilkes Booth using real historical facts. So it's a nonfiction thriller story about the hunt for John Wilkes Booth, and it is hugely interesting. If you've never been a huge fan of history because you think it's just blah, 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 well, you should be ashamed of yourself. I'm a history major. Do some history, read some history. If a lot more people knew their history, this world might be a better place. But this book is amazing. And they wrote kind of a sequel, which I haven't read yet, but it was The Hunt for Jefferson Davis. And they had it concurrently with the train that was taking Lincoln's body around the United States at that time, so people could pay their respects to him instead of having to go into Washington. Because remember, there's no airplanes, there's no cars at this time, and the people who and we're slowly moving out west. Westward expansion hasn't fully happened yet, but we're slowly moving out there. People who loved Lincoln would not have been able to had a chance to pay their respects if this didn't happen. So the train takes the bodies of Abraham Lincoln to the other further westward cities, and they get a chance to pay their respects to Abraham Lincoln instead of having to make their way into Washington, which could take weeks to get there and then weeks to get back. So that was kind of cool. So I haven't read that one yet. I started reading it, but then I got involved in some other stuff. And I need to probably finish that because it's the same writer and it was sort of the same style. So that's pretty cool about that. So that happened today, 1865. Speaking of death, director Milos Forman died yesterday, I believe. Milos has directed some of the most popular films, critically acclaimed, I should say, more critically acclaimed films. He's won multiple Oscars. One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest is probably the biggest one that he's done. Amadeus is another one that he did. Valmont. What else is there? The People versus Larry Flint. Man on the Moon. What is that one? I wrote blah 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 something. But he's done a bunch of hugely popular films. And Man on the Moon was really one of my more favorite ones because REM is my favorite band, and they were asked to do the score for Man on the Moon, which is a fictional biopic about Andy Kaufman. Andy Kaufman's played by Jim Carrey in this one. And Jim Carrey actually does a really, really good job. Courtney Love's in it also, Danny DeVito, which is funny. This is really funny. If you've never seen Man on the Moon, it might be because you're not a big fan of Andy Kaufman. But for those who don't know who Andy Kaufman is, he was a comedian who was just really, really outrageous. He was weird. When in his stand-up comedy, he played like a foreigner type of guy trying to do a stand-up comedy, and the people didn't know what he was capable of, so he would make these really, really bad jokes. And then he said he was going to do impressions, so he did some fake impressions like, "I'm going to do Clint Eastwood. Go ahead, make my day." Really stupid imitations that were obviously not. So then he said, "For my last imitation, I'm going to do Elvis Presley." And because Andy Kaufman was such a great Elvis impersonator, he gets dressed, he rips off his clothes or whatever, has the rhinestone stuff on. Everybody's like, oh, look at that. He's going to just go, I'm Elvis, you know, that type of thing. Or you're nothing but the hound dog. And then he goes and he kicks into one of the absolute best Elvis impersonations, and it blows the people's minds out in the audience. And he's created, I forget who the asshole character he created. He created a character who was a big asshole. I mean, he totally gets in that character. He's got a big bushy mustache and extra padding to heaviness, and he has women all over him and fuzzy hair and stuff like that, and nothing like what Andy was like. And then because of all that obscure, crazy humor, he got a role as Latka on Taxi, which is one of the best sitcoms out there, that co-starred a young Danny DeVito. Then after Taxi ended, Andy went into this kind of weird spiral where he became a wrestler, pro wrestler, where he would just wrestle women and he would insult them and stuff like that. And it went crazy from there on out. So he played a lot of really asshole roles and stuff like that. And then eventually he died of cancer. And the reason why I put the quotations up there is because there's conspiracy theories. Not really conspiracy, I guess, because it's about someone's life, but there are theories out there that he did not actually die, that this was all part of a elaborate long con joke where he fakes his death and he lives his life as a totally different person for multiple years, 10, 20, 30, 40, whatever, how many years that he decides he wants to do. And then one day, we don't know what that day might be. If this is the true theory, this person that he's portraying, whatever, is going to announce a big announcement or something like that. He's going to set up some sort of thing that's going to get the attention of the media for whatever reason. He'll figure out a way to get the media to this thing and reveal, hey, look what I've been faking my death for 50 years. Look how great I am. I'm the greatest comedian of all time. That's the type of stuff he would do. Now, I'm not 100% certain I believe that. I actually like my dad's theory. I don't know if you heard this from someone else, but my dad actually, I think it was my dad, he told me this theory, so I'm assuming it was him. My dad told me this theory that he had was that because Andy Kaufman did such a great Elvis impersonation, I don't know if you remember, right around after the time he died in the mid-'80s, all of a sudden there was a wave of Elvis sightings because Elvis died in the late 70s, and a lot of people thought he faked his death also, because he didn't want to be in the spotlight anymore. But sometime in the mid-'80s, right after Andy Kaufman died, all of a sudden there was a huge rash of Elvis Presley sightings, gas stations, diners, whatever. My dad's theory is that he believes that Andy Kaufman faked his death and then did his Elvis impersonation in the middle of nowhere. You know, would go to, like, say, Iowa, wherever the first Elvis sighting was. And he would not do, like, the impression, but he would have the long sideburns and the glasses and make it look like Elvis Presley. That he did that. So, because it fits into his scheme, he fakes his death and becomes a completely different person who we think is dead, but is showing to be alive. So I don't know. That's a neat theory also. Spoiler alert, if you watch Man on the Moon, Paul Giamatti's in it also. If you watch Man on the Moon, what I was going to say was what's funny about it is Danny DeVito is in Man on the Moon, but he does not play the character he played in Taxi, even though they have a couple scenes of stuff being filmed on the Taxi set, and they got the Taxi Jeff Conaway and Mary Lou Henner to come in, and I don't think they had Christopher Lloyd or Judd Hirsch in there, but they had some of the cast members from Taxi reprise their roles for some Taxi sets and scenarios, stuff like that. But they never did Danny DeVito because he was playing a completely different character in Man on the Moon. It's just really, really kind of meta funny that Danny worked with the real Andy Kaufman on a show called Taxi. Then in this biopic movie, he does not play the role he played on Taxi. Instead, he plays a completely different role, working with an actor portraying Andy Kaufman. It's kind of a funny meta type of thing. And at the end, spoiler alert, the movie sort of postulates that Andy Kaufman faked his death. And I'm not going to tell you how they do that, but it's actually kind of a clever thing, and it involves Paul Giamatti, and that's all I'm gonna say about that. But Milos Forman passed away. Was one of those directors you probably didn't know his name, but you knew his movies. Amadeus, Man on the Moon, One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, Valmont, People versus Larry Flint. There's probably a few other ones I'm missing in there. I just can't think of them right now. Also, who died today, actually today of all days, Art Bell died. Now, for those who don't know who Art Bell is, Art Bell was a conspiracy theorist radio guy who did a show called Coast to Coast AM, where he would do shows about UFOs and Bigfoots and supernatural events. And he would take phone calls from people who had supernatural events, and he'd have guests on who had supernatural events. Art Bell also claimed that the government was threatening to kill him or was stalking him because he was revealing the truth about UFOs. There was also a caller who called to his show, Coast to Coast, and said that they were a person who worked in the Viking lander section in NASA during the 1970s. Viking was a probe that landed on Mars. It was the first one that Earth sent to Mars. It didn't have a rover because the technology wasn't out that in the 70s, but it was the first robotic, whatever you want to call it, that landed on the moon, and it's not on Mars, and it sent back pictures from the surface of Mars, which was a big thing back in the 70s. Art Bell, a few years ago, got a phone call on his show live about a person who claimed to be working in the Viking room in Houston. They claimed that Viking was a cover for a manned landing on the moon, or on I keep saying on the moon, on Mars, that we actually have landed people on Mars before. We're just keeping it secret because they've discovered something that they don't want to reveal to the world. Again, I don't know how much you can believe a lot of these people, but that's what Art Bell did. He did these types of shows. I think he was even, he made a cameo on The X-Files a couple times. But Art Bell passed away today as well. Connect it. Let's connect it. It's not really aliens. Well, it is kind of. I've talked about this a bunch of times already because every year it comes up. Guess what's going to happen April 23rd? The rapture, end of the world, is going to happen on April 23rd now. It's going to be April 23rd now. It's always funny. Every year there is a specific date that people are going to claim. This is the day that actually stuff is going to happen, where the world is going to end or the rapture is going to happen. And every time I see one of those stories, I always retweet it or share it. And I always share it on the show because it is hugely ridiculous. And this has gone all the way back to 2011 when the rapture was originally supposed to be happening. So just do a quick recap of the days that the end of the world was supposed to happen. There was one day in 2011, I think it was September, sometime September 2011, where the rapture was supposed to happen. It was going to be a Saturday, and it was going to be at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. That day, my cousin, whose husband, my cousin-in-law, I guess, is a member of the Naval Academy, went to the Naval Academy and is now a doctor for the Naval Academy. When he got his doctorate at the Naval Academy, because of his connections to the Naval Academy, my cousin was able to get a special building on the Naval Academy for his doctor's party, you know, a celebration of him finishing his doctorate and stuff like that. So of course she invited us because it's my cousin. And so we went and we got onto the Naval Academy property. My kids were, let me see, it was 2011. Noelle was 5 and Noah was 2. And of course, they weren't going to be that interested in groups of grown-ups doing stuff and just talking. They were bored. They wanted to go outside. It was a nice day, I remember. So I went out with the kids, and my nephews also were a little bit older, so they could help me watch them as well. And we just took a walk around the Naval Academy campus. And at the time, I knew the rapture was going to happen, so I was telling everybody as it's laughing, it's like, hey, you better watch out, 6 o'clock, the rapture is going to happen. And I was telling everybody, and if it does, we're still going to be here on the Naval Academy at 6 p.m. And guess what? We're probably in one of the most safest places to be if a rapture does happen, because you cannot get into the Naval Academy without proper credentials. And they will use force to kick your ass out if you are not allowed in the Naval Academy base. And so we would have been protected if the rapture did happen, because chaos would have happened with people just floating up in the air. Hopefully we would be floating up in the air with everybody and going to heaven. But if we weren't and society started crumbling, we were in the best absolute place to be. So 6 o'clock hits and like, okay, rapture, where are you? And nothing happened. Now, I knew nothing was going to happen. I never truly believed the rapture was going to happen, because if you know your Bible, well, if you're Christian, you should know your Bible. I'm Christian. As I said, I don't always agree with everything in the Bible, and I don't think you can pick and choose things from the Bible to push your agenda. Gay marriage. People using a line from the Old Testament saying gay marriage is illegal in the eyes of God. You know what else is illegal? Eating shrimp, tattoos. Oh, and you can also stone your wife if she cheats on you, which is basically killing her. Oh, yeah. If you die and you do not have a male child with your wife and you die, your wife has to marry your brother, and he has to, I'm not going to say the F word, impregnate her, and they have to have a son that way. That's the rules. Yeah, no, it's not right. So you can't say, well, the Bible says gay marriage is wrong. Well, it also says that your wife can fuck another guy if you die. She has to. That's the rules. The Bible is just really one person's, well, not one person, but a group of people's vision of what they've heard from the Bible. And it's not necessarily a textbook about what you have to do. I know all you religious people out there are like, yeah, it is. Shut the hell up. What do you know? Anyway, my point is, it says in Revelations or wherever leading up to Revelations or whatever, that no one knows when the rapture will occur, when the second coming will happen, when the end of the world comes. The only person who knows is not a person. He's the deity. He's the big G. He's the God. A God that knows when everybody is going to die, because he's going to do it. He's like, you know what? Not April 23rd. How about April 24th? Boom. He's not going to let you know. You don't know. These people who claim to know the end of the world is going to happen, they don't know. So if someone says the end of the world is going to happen on April 23rd at 6 p.m. because I was looking at the way the moons of the planets are all lining up and all this stuff, no, it's not going to happen. That's not how it works. No. The rapture is created by God, and he'll do it when he damn well feels like it. He could do it tomorrow for all I care. I don't know. He could do it 100 years from now, 1,000 years from now, or he could do it never. He'd be like, you know what? Just kidding. I'm never going to do the rapture. There's never going to be a second coming. I'm just messing with you people. You're just going to keep thinking it's going to keep it on. It'll be out there sometime. And it doesn't happen. He could be doing that. So no one knows when it's going to happen. So saying the rapture is going to happen April 23rd is tantamount to saying, well, no, actually, it's not, because Nobody knows when the rapture is going to happen. You can do all kinds of studies and think all this stuff is going to happen and the end of the world is going to do all this stuff and this is when it's going to happen. No. I mean, in 2012 is another example. You know, the Aztec or the Mayan calendar ended in 2012. So December 22nd, 2012. There was nothing else after that. 2020, December 22nd, 2012 shows up. Yeah, no. We woke up the next morning, December 23rd. It's like, oh God, it's almost Christmas time. We better buy the Christmas present now. It's not the end of the world. And then Christmas happened. And then New Year's happened. And then it's 2013. And holy God, we're still alive. And then it's 2014. And then before you know it, it's April 14th, 2018. And guess what? We're still here. And then there was a couple of weeks ago, they said it was going to happen. And then last year, they said it 2 or 3 times was going to happen. So now I just like to say it because it's funny as hell that people saying that. And then the reasoning about how it's going to happen is also ridiculous too. Nibiru, which is supposedly the 10th planet, 9th planet, whatever you want to call it. It's big, massive. It's the size of Jupiter, but instead of being a gas giant, it's actually land-based. And its orbit is like once every 100,000 years or something like that. So it orbits around the sun like once every 100,000 years. And the last time it orbited around the sun, it created the Earth or something like that. It crashed into, or rather created the moon. It crashed into the Earth, which created the moon. And, you know, also the aliens who live on Nibiru planted the humans here on Earth, and we are descendants of the aliens who live on Nibiru, and when they come back, they're going to come back and rule us, or the Nibiru aliens are the ones that helped build it. I don't know. It's all this bullshit anyway, because Nibiru, if it's literally the size of Jupiter, and it is a solid, even if it wasn't a solid planet, if it was just a regular planet that was the size of Jupiter, and it was on its way back to Earth, or passing by Earth through its rotation around the sun, guess what? We would have been watching it for years at this point. Because when you look up into the sky and you see that thing called the sun, or you look up in the sky and you see all the planets. You can see all the planets. You can see Mercury. You can see Venus. You can see Mars. You can see Jupiter, Saturn. And if you're really, really good and you've got some good equipment, you can see Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto. Those are really harder to find with the naked eye until they're closer to Earth, and closer in that they're not here, they're here. You know, they're still millions and millions of miles away from us. And they are really, really faint stars in the sky. But if you go outside, you look at Venus. Venus is one of those really bright stars up there. And that's Venus. We know that's Venus. And then you look at the moon, and you see the moon when it's full, or and it's, you know, it's not huge, but it's, you know, it's there. You can see it. And the sun is always there. And you see all the other planets, Jupiter, so on, stuff like that. So if Nibiru was the size of Jupiter, which is, I think, slightly smaller or slightly bigger than our sun. I don't remember. If it was heading towards Earth in a collision course, by now, if it was going to hit us April 23rd, as they're proclaiming, it would probably be bigger than the sun right now. Because if we're talking about a planet the size of Jupiter, coming on a collision course with the Earth, and it's coming closer, it's not going to be invisible. It's not going to be a little pinprick star in the sky. Jupiter is either slightly bigger or slightly smaller than the sun. The sun is the same size whenever you look at it. And it's right there in the sky. If Nibiru was coming your way and it was bigger or slightly smaller than the sun, you would literally see 2 suns in the sky. Or if it was coming, you saw it on the night side, it would be bigger than the moon. Okay? Have you ever seen those Photoshop pictures that people like to put up where people say, what would it be like if Jupiter was where the moon was, or if Saturn was where the moon was, or if Venus or Mars or whatever was by where the moon was? And you have a real picture of like San Francisco or something like that. Have you seen that picture? Remember, they're saying Nibiru is about the same size as Jupiter. And if it was where the moon was, which is 247 million miles, no, 247,000 miles, something like that, away from the Earth, and they had this Photoshop picture of Jupiter, guess what? Jupiter would fill the entire frickin' sky if it was in the same location as where the moon was, because the Jupiter is frickin' huge. You could fit like 100 Earths in Jupiter. 100 Earths, not 100 United States or Antarctica. No. 100 planet Earths would fit in Jupiter, and there'd still be space. If Nibiru was the size of Jupiter and it's going to hit us April 23rd, guess what? You would be seeing it in the sky right now. Go outside right now. Keep your computer on so I can get the views. Go outside right now. If it's not cloudy, look up in the sky. Do you see a big giant planet? Well, what if it's on the sunny side? Well, then go tomorrow and check tomorrow. Well, what if it's cloudy? It doesn't matter if it's cloudy. It's going to be bigger than the freaking clouds. You're going to see a massive thing in the sky, even if it's 247,000 miles away. If it's going to hit us next week, it's got to be very, very close. There's no Nibiru. If there is, it's still way out there in the solar system and is nowhere close to coming close to hitting us. I'm sorry, people. It just isn't. Because you would see it if it was going to hit us next week. It would be filling the entire sky, night or day, depending on the rotation of the Earth. You would still see it one way or the other. It's not like, well, it's going to be on the night side, but when we rotate around again, it's not going to be there because it's going to stay on the night side. No, that's not how it works. It's coming at you at a specific point, and the Earth is rotating around it. So you would see it regardless. I said phooey, and I mean phooey. Phooey. Rapture my ass, April 23rd. Hey, if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. Hey, we're all dead. Not going to happen. Philadelphia is about to have the biggest Wawa in the world. I guess that's appropriate since I think Wawa was created in Philadelphia. I like Wawa. We have one down the street, and my friend Mandy, who I mentioned earlier, she's jealous of us because she loves their coffee, and she doesn't have one near her. Ours is a gas station Wawa. And I've gone on there a number of times, and the reason why I like Wawa is because they will always release like the new candy bars that I talk about on my show or I read about or whatever that sound interesting, like the newest one, the Hershey Gold. I hadn't seen that at my grocery store or at the Royal Farm store or whatever. But I went to Wawa. They had a bunch of them. The Reese's Peanut Butter Cups that have Oreos in it. That one I've only seen at Wawa. I've seen it, and at Target also. I've seen it there too. I've seen the Reese's Pieces and Reese's Peanut Butter Cups, I still like also, at my grocery store and Royal Farm store, but not that. And then the other thing I like also is they do the sodas that I talk about also that are brand new, like when they did the cinnamon Pepsi. No other place had it around. No Royal Farm store, not my local grocery store, whatever. Went to Wawa, they had a whole bunch of them. So I was able to try it there. It's a clean place. It looks like it's got good coffee. I've used their gas before. It's pretty nice. And so good on them. I mean, I guess it belongs because Philly, as I said, I think was the place that the first one started. Now, as you noticed when I was last talking about effing Nibiru, I cursed a lot. Well, psychologists explain why you should be friends with people who swear a lot. People who use taboo words are more fluent in mundane, redundant words, and we understand the the meaning of the expression when we use these mundane words, as well as the nuance. God, I hate my writing. Discern that must be drawn to you. Swears. Anyway, the basic wrap up is the reason why people like me swear a lot is because we can say we're in for some nasty weather, or we're in some bad weather. And people would understand that. It's like, okay, you know, that's understandable. So we're going to get some thunder and lightning or heavy snow or whatever. But if you really want to emphasize, man, we're going to get some fucking thunderstorms or some huge ass lightning strikes, stuff like that. It adds that extra dimension of, okay, you said nasty. And I got it. I know what I mean by nasty, but you said fucking thunderstorms or big ass lightning. All of a sudden your mind is like, holy shit. Big ass lightning? Are we talking about like lights up the whole sky and then all of a sudden the thunder shakes your house? Yeah, thunder's going to shake your fucking house. It's a colorful metaphor, as Leonard Nimoy's Spock would say in Star Trek 4. And I think that's the point of it, is that, you know, I guess it didn't really explain why you should be friends with these people. I guess it gives them a chance to give you a more colorful discussion about mundane things. That's the weather, as I said. The difference between nasty weather and fucking horrible weather. You're going to get the, what do you mean by that? Nasty weather could be, well, okay, we're going to get some, you know, maybe some rain, and it's going to be kind of yucky out and stuff like that. Nasty fucking weather, yeah, it's going to make your day crappy. Well, I wish that would have gone better if I could read my damn writing. I don't know how true this is. If this is true, this is really kind of interesting, and I think it is, but when it comes to stuff on the internet, sometimes you just don't know what's true. I mean, Snopes and all that stuff, and I didn't do a thorough investigating of it before I put it on my show, but you know what? I'm going to use it anyway because I think it's an interesting story. It's a fun, it's not fun, but it's an interesting story, and it makes you think that, you know, it's supposed to be kind of helpful to you, like if your life or your world is falling apart, well, at least you're not this guy. And this guy survived some nasty stuff to survive. In 1945, World War II ended. We helped the Allies take down the Axis enemies in Europe. But Europe was just one of the theaters of war. The other one was Pacific, and the Pacific one was going a lot worse because the Japanese were a bit more tougher, I guess. The Nazis and the socialists from Italy and stuff like that were having some. They had been fighting and trying to protect their stuff for years, and the Japanese sort of swooped in around the time the United States did as well. So there was only a few years where they weren't as maxed out as these other ones were. Plus, they had the advantage of they were in an area that we didn't really know a lot about in 1945, and they did because they explored it. So in order to make sure that we ended the war, here's my history comes in handy. I could have sworn it was Roosevelt who did this, but it could have been Truman who declared we're going to use our atomic bombs on Japan, and that's going to end the war. Which, when you're in a tight corner, you've painted yourself into a corner, you don't know how you're going to escape. Sometimes you're just going to have to tear up the floor again and start over. And it doesn't matter who you hurt or who you kill to restart. But if you restart, you can do it right the next time. That's the euphemism I'm using. So we dropped 2 bombs on Japan, atomic bombs. One on Hiroshima, which everybody knows about, but a lot of people forget that a couple days later they dropped one on Nagasaki as well, and that ended the war. They're like, oh God, they hit Hiroshima. And the Japanese at that time were like, ugh, we should rethink our war strategy. I don't know if we can handle this. They killed all our people this way. What's going to make them stop from dropping one on Tokyo, where most of our people live? Are they that cold-blooded? I don't know. Maybe we should try to destroy them before that happens as a retaliation for killing all these people. Let's attack them. And then a couple days later, they got bombed again. They're like, okay, we're done. They bombed us twice. They have no problem killing millions of people to end this war. We just give up, man. Give up. And so they did. And that was how we ended the Japanese part of World War II. So here's the story, according to what I read on the internet. A man survived the atomic blast in Hiroshima. He dragged himself to an air raid shelter, spent the night, caught a morning train so he could get to his job on time in Nagasaki, where he survived his second atomic blast. This guy went from Hiroshima to Nagasaki and was present when both atomic bombs dropped, and he still survived. I just found that as a wild story. It's interesting to me. And again, I don't know how true it is, but I find it kind of interesting. The abandoned Toys R Us. Now, we talked about Toys R Us a while back, how it's gone to bankruptcy, and now they're closing every shop and they're liquidating everything. It's going out of business. So a lot of the Toys R Us's are out there now are abandoned buildings. So they don't know what they're going to do with it yet. Tear it down, put a strip mall in there, or put another building, another store in there, like a Costco or something like that. They don't know what they're going to do with a lot of these places. Don't know what they're going to do with the one near us. But recently, this week, as a matter of fact, a bunch of people were arrested at an abandoned Toys R Us where an illegal rave was taking place. So, hey, the rave master's like, hey, man, let's go to abandoned Toys R Us. Nobody's there. It's a big cavernous store. No more shelving, nothing. It's just a big, giant cavernous thing. We can throw ourselves a damn good rave. They get the music in. They're able to use electricity, however they get the rave going, and they got caught for it. So, our Toys R Us is now going to start becoming raves, places, locations. Hey, why not? Will Ferrell. And this would have been interesting to talk to Jerry about because she likes Will Ferrell. But Will Ferrell is in a hospital, intensive care, after a car accident. He sustained some injuries a couple days ago. Apparently he's okay because I haven't heard anything more from the story, so he's probably going to survive. But still, it's always not interesting. But when a celebrity or whatever is in a car accident, like normal people, you sometimes forget that celebrities are normal people, which drives me crazy also when and I'm going to say this, and this might draw my one viewer away, but I don't know what your affiliation is, but conservatives, Republicans, whatever you want to call it, whenever they say, actors or sports people should not have a say, shouldn't make comments about their disdain for the government now, or what they think is a problem in government. When these people say, you're actors, you're sports players, what the hell do you know about anything? Go play your sports, go do your acting, we pay you to do that. Well, actually, you don't pay anything. The movie stars are paid by the production company that makes the films. Now, granted, you might pay for your movie tickets and some of that money gets funneled back to these movies, but they are multi-million-dollar companies, and they set budgets that they have the money in-house to do. So they pay the actors. Sports people are paid by the owner of that sports team, be it basketball, hockey, baseball, football, whatever. But the one thing you have to remember is, despite the fact that they are actors or sports people, they're also Americans. They're regular people like you and I. They might be popular movie stars or popular athletes, and they might make millions upon millions of dollars. But guess what? They're Americans also. And they have every right to say whatever the hell they want to. And you nor any of your cronies can tell them to shut up. Because it's a democracy, no matter how hard you all are trying to turn it into a dictatorship. We are not a dictatorship. We are a democracy, and democracy will win in the end. What Where the hell did that come from? I forget. Oh, the Will Ferrell thing. That's right. When stuff happens to celebrities that happen to normal people, sometimes you forget that celebrities are also at one time or another were normal people also, or have become normal people when their celebrity has burned out. This is a big news story that's been popping up lately. Hand dryers in bathrooms at restaurants or in the mall or whatever, where you go to the restrooms there, those hand dryers where after you wash your hands, they blow the hot air on your hands to dry it instead of using paper towels. Well, apparently they say hand dryers suck up bathroom bacteria and then blow it back out onto your hands. They like to use the term in these articles, the feces particles get spit back onto your hands. Now they're saying this because they know people know what the word feces stands for. It's shit or poop or whatever the hell you want to call it. And to tell people that when you wash your hands and you use that the hot air dryer, that while you're wiping your hands getting dry, poop is falling onto your hands. That's what they're trying to make it seem like, that when you put your hand underneath one of those air blowers, that nothing but shit is coming out and it's falling all over your hands, and your hands are going to smell like shit and turn to shit. Now, I am all for cleanliness and no bacteria and stuff like that, but you can't see these feces particles. Your hands don't smell. And honestly, it drives me a little bonkers. I know there's scientific proof about it, and I know all this stuff, but it drives me absolutely bonkers that people freak out that if they have something on their hands that they can't see, it's going to kill them. I get it. I do. I mean, I use soap and water when I'm washing my hands, stuff like that. It's just, if you can't see it, you really, I mean, I know it's microbial and stuff like that. That might make you feel sick. I don't know, because is that what makes you feel sick, or is it something else? You can't see it. So it's not like you're putting your hands under something and all this shit is flying onto it. No, it's a feces particle because they want to get, and emphasis says they need to fix that. They need to do something else. And I don't even know how true that is. I mean, how did you figure that out? And does that also include the hand warmers by, oh God, what are the people who do those awesome vacuum cleaners? I forget what they are, but there are a lot of restaurants nowadays that instead of the old school hand dryer that way, you put your hands down into it and the heat dries it that way. Instead of it being like this, it's like this. Does that shoot out feces and suck up feces as well? Or is it a different style of drying stuff, suction, whatever you want to call it? So I don't know. It just, to me, just when they're using the term feces particles, it starts freaking people out. That, oh my God, I got shit all over my hands. That's how you get germaphobes. Like, oh God, like that. Let's face facts. And I'm not just saying this to be a dick or whatever, but if you keep your house immaculate, and I'll give you an example. My sister keeps her house immaculate, which is great. She loves to do that. She's proud of her house. She likes to keep things clean and neat. So I get it. My house is a wreck. And I lost my viewers when I was talking about feces particles. No, actually, I think it's because the Late Night Movie Club started and they're moving on, but that's besides the point. They can watch the rest of it later. My house is a mess, and I'm okay with it because I'm a busy person. My wife is a busy person. We're tired. We get tired. I'm tired right now. I still want to do this show. So we do our best every once in a while. We do some cleaning here and there. We do some periodically. We clean the dishes and we take out the trash and all that stuff. So we're not living like in filth or something like that. But our floors might not necessarily be the cleanest. Our rugs are not vacuumed every day, every week, whatever. There's dust and stuff like that. So my sister's house, that's immaculate. My sister, my brother-in-law, my nephews seem to be sick a lot. And I don't know, it could just be coincidental. And then my house, we don't get sick that much. Now, it could be coincidental, but in the house that my sister has, where it's immaculate, if any bacteria from colds or whatever comes in, you're used to an immaculate stuff, and your body's systems are used to clean and fresh. And when they get attacked by a bacteria, it can't handle it, and you become sick. But if you live in a house that's not quite the cleanest in the world, you've already got all kinds of bacteria and shit on you. And when this bacteria says, oh, I'm going to make him sick, and it comes in and it looks at other bacteria like, hey, man, what's up? And you're like, who are you guys? It's like, oh, we're bacteria also. Okay, yeah, and we're stronger than your ass. Boom, boom, boom. You're covered in bacteria. That's one of the reasons why you take showers. You get the dead skin off, and you get some of the old bacteria. That's why you feel fresh and clean after you take a shower. But there is no 100% way that I know of where you can keep yourself completely free of germs. And even if you could, with the story I just told you, your immune system, if you are in an immaculate, clean house, is not used to intrusions by a bacteria. So your body doesn't have the safeguards up against it, and you get sick. Where you've been living in not necessarily, as I said, not filth. We're not living in a pigsty here. That's what my wife might say. But it's a mess. It's messy, but you know what? The kids are fine. I'm fine. We hardly ever get sick. It's because our immune system has been built up because we live in this type of facility. I don't know if I'm getting through to people. Whatever. What the hell is that? Oh, it's the same part of the story. Okay. Sour Patch Kids flavored ice cream is going to be coming out soon. Sour Patch Kids are interesting because they're gummies that have a coating of sour that sort of flavoring to it. And they're actually pretty good. My kids like them. So it's going to be interesting to see how they can do this ice cream. So it'll probably be coming out. I'm not going to talk about this because I'm running out of time. Interesting how it's going to taste. Also, glitter sunscreen is going to be the new big thing this year because everybody loves glitter. They're going to put some sunscreen on, and when you're at the beach, you're going to be glittering. That's the new thing. Just mentioning it. Incredibles 2 released a new trailer out there. It looks just as good as the regular Incredibles. Looks like they haven't missed a beat. Looks like they're going to have a nice bad guy and I guess you could think of a fairly predictable story where mom gets, it's sort of like a Mr. Mom movie where mom gets a job and is successful, but she's away from her family for long periods of time. And the dad, who's not used to, taking care of kids in the house, now has to take care of the kids in the house, and he's got to learn that way. So they're sort of flipping roles, and he's becoming the the house manager, the house dad, the stay-at-home dad, and and Elastic Girl's going out there and winning stuff. So that's what looks like the main story is going to be about, and that's interesting. I'll talk about 90s Avengers in a second. I just want to see if there's anything I need to roll through here because I got a whole other page of news, and I'm at almost going to be hitting 2 hours. And I still got about a half an hour before I hit 2 hours. So let's just run down the thing here. The King of Kong star, the documentary about the guy who had the most top scores at Donkey Kong, has been stripped of all his high scores and banned from competition for some reason. I can't remember what he did, but he did something. A fourth grader who ditched school to go to a Cubs game runs into his principal, who also ditched to go to this Cubs game. That would be awkward. Action Comics is going to become the first American comic to have 1,000 issues. The 1000 is coming up either this week or next week. It's coming up really soon. And it's going to be huge. It's got a bunch of big stories from really good creative teams, and I'm really looking forward to it. But Action Comics 1000 is coming. The Fox Disney acquisition to be completed next summer, summer 2019, which means that the Marvel Cinematic Universe can start bringing in the mutants and Fantastic Four and Deadpool to their MCU. And I mentioned this last week where the X-Men Dark Phoenix movie has been pushed back to 2019, as has the New Mutants movie. And I made some speculation that possibly the acquisition of these of Fox and Disney is going to take place in 2019 and finish up, and that Dark Phoenix is rumored to connect the X-Men to the MCU at large, and that's why it's been delayed, because they had to reshoot something with this acquisition. So we'll see what happens. Nutter Butter cookie donut from Krispy Kreme. My wife loves Nutter Butters. Actually, I love Nutter Butters also. Krispy Kreme has really been up in their game a little, because when Krispy Kreme first came to my area, the only thing that they were most known for was their melty glazed donuts that taste like you're eating a stick of butter with sugar on it, which is good, and there's nothing wrong with that because they're warm and yummy and it's delicious, but it's sweet as hell. They've been doing a lot of different types of donuts, maybe trying to become a little bit more like Dunkin' a little bit and making them different and unusual. And Nutter Butter cookie donuts might actually be pretty good, because Nutter Butters are really good. If you can keep this sort of same peanut butter sort of flavoring, hey, it could be fantastic. Speaking of other food, Heinz Mayo Chup will be coming out very soon. It's a new condiment that mixes mayonnaise and ketchup in one bottle. Now, you probably know somebody who does this. I know a bunch of pretty intimate people who do this. Most intimately is my lovely wife, Dawn. She likes to mix ketchup and mayonnaise into a fry dip, where she eats fries with ketchup mayo. I don't know. She likes it. My mother also makes a ketchup and mayo salad dressing. So she mixes up ketchup and mayo and puts it on her salads. And she likes that too. Apparently, I guess it's the flavor of the ketchup with the mayo mixes pretty well with some things. And I guess Heinz was paying attention, and they saw that it's a pretty popular item. So, hey, why don't we release something for real? And Dawn's thing is it has to be mixed properly. She's a scientist, so she knows how to mix it up properly so that you get 50-50 like mayo and ketchup. Hopefully this will be able to do the same thing. I will probably buy this bottle of this for her to let her try it to see if it's up to snuff. If not, oh well. I'm not going to talk. I'm just going to mention it. REM is my favorite band. REM Day was last week. I mentioned that in my Check I Day sequence. This week is the anniversary of their first album, Murmur. It was their 35th anniversary. I did a detailed description of it last year, I think, of the tracks and what I liked about them and stuff like that. I'm not going to do that. I just want to mention 35 years since REM's first album, and they haven't been together as a band now for about 5-6 years, so it's been a while. Black Hole has finally been imaged for the first time thanks to the Event Horizon Telescope, which is kind of cool. The picture looks kind of neat of what a black hole actually looks like. People at this point have only postulated what it could look like. They've actually gotten a picture of a black hole, and it looks pretty much like we predicted. It seems to be a bit more colorful than we thought it was, but that could also be the after effects of the imaging. I don't know. Stan Lee. What's interesting is going on is you've been hearing probably via your social media about the elder abuse he's been having. Well, Stan Lee's been having an interesting last few months, 6 months at least. A few months back, when all the sexual harassment stuff started coming to light, somebody declared that Stan Lee was sexually harassing them now, when he's a senile old man, which is a horrible thing to say. I shouldn't say that. But he has Alzheimer's or something like that, and he's in his 90s, and he just lost his wife, so he's not in a great place. So a lot of people, when they heard this article or heard the story that he was harassing his caregiver or whatever. A lot of people didn't believe it. And at the time, I was like, it's possible, because if you've seen some of the cameos he's done before, he seems kind of a sleazy type. And if you've heard some of the stuff he's done in the past when he was younger, he was devoted to his wife. He never cheated, as far as we know, but he created a big bosom superhero in the early 2000s. Dirty old man thing, I guess you could think about. I don't know. But recently, there have been stories that he is being abused. Some say by his daughter. Some say people have been taking his blood and using it to sign comics with. Again, I don't know how true that is. The only time I've heard that happening was done by Mark Gruenwald. And he was a writer that died too soon. And there was talk that some books were signed with his blood. Another one is that he was cremated and he was put into ink that did the colors for Squadron Supreme, which was like his magnum opus story. Any trades that came out like that had his ashes. I'm not 100% certain if that's true either. But there have been talk that he has been getting abused by his caregivers, maybe his daughter, or some other stuff as well. And so a lot of people are offering themselves up. Kevin Smith is saying, hey, I don't want you to get abused. Come to my house and live with me and my family. We'll take care of you. You're like our grandpa, that type of thing. And there are other people who are offering to help Stan in some way or another. And then there was a story that came out a couple days later that said, Stan Lee says these talks about elder abuse are not actually true. Now, I don't know how true that is either, because if he's not in his right mind, somebody could have said, hey, why don't you say this so that all this goes away and we won't have to worry about people intruding upon our life or whatever. I don't know. So I don't know, to be continued, I guess. Whatever, it's a bad scene. If it's true, if it isn't, give the man a break. Let him live out the twilight years of his life happy. Okay. Oh, Universal Studios is going to be getting a Pokemon Land. I told my brother-in-law Mike about this today. It just heard the story recently, so it's not going to come out for a little while. But Universal Studios is really increasing its size and doing a lot of stuff. Harry Potter World, Star Wars World is going to be right near there, I think, also, even though it's Disney. It's not going to be, I guess, in Universal, but it's going to be like right next to Universal. And, so there's a lot of stuff going on like that. So if there's a Pokemon Land, it wouldn't surprise me. And Pokemon is still fairly popular right now, which I'll talk about Pokemon Go near the end of the show. The Russo brothers, who are directing Avengers Infinity War and Avengers 4 and had directed Civil War and the Winter Soldier, have suggested that once the Fox Disney acquisition goes through, like I said, next summer, it's supposed to be wrapped up, they want to make a Marvel Secret Wars movie, which I think would be freaking awesome, because a lot of people were postulating that was what's going to be Avengers 4, was this going to be their version of Secret Wars to end the whole MCU stuff. But for those who don't know what Secret War was, back in the mid-'80s, a 12-issue miniseries written by Jim Shooter with art by Mike Zeck and Bob McLeod came out. And what was great is, leading up to the miniseries, there was an issue. I'll give you an example. Amazing Spider-Man number 251 was the end of a story arc where Spider-Man was battling the Hobgoblin. And the issue ended after he defeated the Hobgoblin, with Spider-Man swinging around New York like he always does, and his spider sense goes off around Central Park. So he's got to go investigate. So he goes and investigates and discovers this giant structure in the middle of Central Park. He doesn't know what the hell it is. So he gets closer to investigate it, and then he disappears. And says, to be continued, Secret War 1. Okay, that's pretty wild. And then, like, the next week, Fantastic Four comes out. And the same thing happens. Fantastic Four wrapped up a storyline. They are flying over Central Park. They get some weird readings. They go down there. They get sucked into the same thing. The Avengers, Captain America, Thor, the X-Men, all these characters, the issue right before Secret War number 1 comes out had the heroes that were going to be involved in it stumble upon this thing in the middle of Central Park and get sucked into it, and that's the cliffhanger. Then the next week, after all the comics did that, the next week after that, Secret War 1 comes out, and you discover, hey, they all got sent to another planet by a character by the name of the Beyonder. There's also villains there too, and there's a whole battle royale thing, and some people have to team up with people they don't want to survive, and they have to try to figure out a way off the thing. And it was going to be a 12-issue miniseries, so there was a big story that was leading to all that. But here's the cool part. So that was the first issue of that, and it was cool and it was interesting like that. The next issue of the comic, again, I'll give Spider-Man an example. Amazing Spider-Man 252. The cover has Spider-Man in a black and white costume. You're like, what the hell is that? Who the hell is that? Is that a new Spider-Man because the old Spider-Man disappeared and was battling Secret War, and we're going to have this new Spider-Man dealing with, stuff until Spider-Man comes back, the real Spider-Man comes back? What is all that about? So you got the book, and you open it up, and you start reading it, and the first couple pages is that damn structure in Central Park has returned, and Spider-Man's flying out in this black and white costume, and it's Peter Parker, you know it. And he's talking about what happened in Secret War. But you haven't seen it yet. Now, it could have failed because, okay, they're not going to die, obviously, because, hey, they came back. But they're a little bit different. How does Spider-Man get that costume? What is that all about? Well, you're going to have to read Secret War to find out. But from 252 on, Spider-Man was in his black costume. It was the symbiote, so it would drain off him. So people are like, oh my God, he's got an alien costume now? It's got to be something from Secret War. We got to find out what's going to happen with that, how that happened with that. Well, you found out what happened with that, issue 8 of Secret War. So 8 months after when the new comic came out, you finally figure out how he did it. That's 8 issues of Spider-Man in the black costume. And the same thing happened with all the other stuff, because all the other comic books had their status quos changed. The Fantastic Four had a new lineup. The X-Men had a new lineup and stuff like that, and different things like that. And they weren't telling you what was going to happen in Secret War. They mentioned it, discreetly, and mentioned things a little bit about that. And then you went to get the comic and tried to figure out when that happened. So you see when all this, so eventually everything gets together. So when issue 12 of Secret War comes out, you're like, oh, okay, everything makes sense now. And then you can read the comic. So they want to do a Secret War movie, which I think would be great. So that means they can grab the X-Men, they can grab the Fantastic Four, they can grab Deadpool, for God's sakes, and put them in with your MCU characters, your Spider-Mans and your Doctor Stranges and your Black Widows and Captain Americas and stuff like that. So could be interesting. Speaking of movies, this movie seems like it's been in production forever. There was a book that came out, I guess it was the early to mid 90s, called Meg. That was supposed to be the Jaws for the 21st century. Well, it wasn't quite 21st century, but like an updated type of Jaws thing. You thought Jaws was rough, about a great white shark terrorizing a small Massachusetts town, island, rather, I should say. Well, guess what? This is a megalodon, which is 10 times bigger than a great white shark and is just as dangerous. And they've been extinct forever, supposedly. But now they're back, and Jason Statham has to fight them. And so it's an action film with a giant shark in it. So the first trailer for that came out, because that movie's coming out this summer. I think it's going to do well at the box office. It looks like it's going to be one of those summer popcorn movies that you want to go into a movie theater for 2 hours and just not think about anything. Get out of the heat, get something cool, and watch something ridiculous that could be kind of fun, The book was okay. It really was a Jaws redux, but a little bit of changes here and there. Hole in the Sun has amped up the auroras, because the solar wind has been increasing that's coming out of this hole. So if you live in a place where you get the aurora borealis, go out there now and look at them and see how intense they are now. Black Panther, probably, in my opinion, the first, it's up there in my top 3 at least best Marvel Cinematic Universe movies of all time. It's finally going to be out on Blu-ray on May 15th. I think it's going to be digital the week before, on May 8th. So that's coming up very quickly too. So I'll be able to own Black Panther and watch anytime I want, because it's a great movie. New Lord of the Rings novel will be coming out this summer also, written by J.R.R. Tolkien based on some of the notes he had and maybe a half-written manuscript or whatever. I think his grandson is finishing it up because he's done that with a few other of Tolkien's books. So this one supposedly takes place during the actual Lord of the Rings storyline, so it'll have some of the characters interacting with that. I don't know how true that is, but it's going to be called Fall of Gondolin. So look for that this summer. If you were a Lord of the Rings fan, I'll get a copy for my wife, obviously, because she loves that. This is such a stupid story, but I want to mention it anyway. Woman blames the wind for having a bag of cocaine get blown into her purse. A police officer pulled her over. She had a baggie of cocaine, and she was like, how the hell did that get in there? I don't know. I've never done cocaine. I don't know how that can. That's not mine. I think the wind might have picked up a bag of cocaine and dropped it into my purse. Welcome to Trump's America. Strawberry shortcake Oreos is going to be the new summer treat. It's not exactly what you think it is. Apparently they're, and I probably have seen this before, but I don't think I've ever eaten one. There's an ice cream that is called the strawberry shortcake ice cream. It's got like a strawberry shortcake flavored ice cream. It's got like they're nutty or cookie oriented exterior. They're going to make that flavor into this summer's Oreo. So keep an eye out for that. Sebastian Stan, who plays the Winter Soldier in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, wants to be in the Black Widow movie, which pretty much has been greenlit and will be out in 2020, which is, it should be, Black Widow should have had a movie sooner than that, but hey, with the success of Wonder Woman and the potential success of Captain Marvel next year, and stuff like that, we finally have a Black Widow movie. You have a good storyline. Now, I mentioned this before. In the comics, remember, Black Widow starts off as a Russian spy, and she defects to America and becomes a good guy. In the comics, when the Winter Soldier was introduced, the Black Widow knew who he was, knew it was Bucky, and knew who he was because she had a relationship with him. She trained with him because she was an assassin. He was an assassin. He might have only popped up when they needed him, but she knew who he was, and he knew who she was, and they ended up having a relationship. And then the whole Winter Soldier story took place, and stuff like that. So I was hoping they were going to sort of maybe lay the groundwork for that in the movies. And then to my surprise, when Winter Soldier originally came out, Black Widow knew who Winter Soldier was and said that, after she had defected, she had met up with him and he shot her, didn't kill her, but shot her. So she knows what he's like and who he's up against. So she knew who he was. And that was okay. I mean, it's like, okay, yeah, it makes sense. You want to add that Easter egg. Like, okay, the Black Widow would know who Winter Soldier is because she was a high-ranking KGB spy. He is a high-ranking assassin for the KGB, so they would know each other in some form or another. But then the coup de grace was a throwaway line that a lot of people probably didn't even glean on, but I did the minute she said it when I saw Civil War in the movie theater. There's a scene where Baron Zemo, who plays the bad guy in Civil War, is able to turn Bucky back into the assassin, the Winter Soldier, and he escapes his prison and kills a bunch of people and takes on Tony Stark and Falcon and Captain America and Black Widow. And there's a scene where Black Widow does her wrap her legs around the head and beat the crap out of him until he collapses, type of move she always does. But in this case, the Winter Soldier grabs her and slams her down on a table and is like getting ready to choke her when she just does a throwaway line where she sort of says, at least don't you remember who I am, or something like that. And it goes back to Sebastian Stan's face as the Winter Soldier, and he pauses for a second, like he's remembering who she is, and he doesn't do anything to hurt her after that. And then all of a sudden he gets taken out by Tony or someone like that. And that's the last we hear of it. It doesn't get mentioned again. So that one throwaway line is sort of laying the groundwork for the fact that they might have a relationship. And Sebastian Stan says, it was like that in the comics. I kind of want to do that in the Black Widow movie because we're going to go into her past a little bit, and this Winter Soldier is going to be a part of her past. So I think it's a good idea, and I think they need to bring that about. Legoland Japan creates a cherry blossom tree using over 800,000 Legos. It's astonishing, and it's amazing that someone can actually do something like that with Legos. It's crazy to me. I'm not going to talk about this either. Huey Lewis cancels his show due to hearing loss. He's getting older. Being a musician for so long around the big bass and stuff like that, eventually you're probably going to start having hearing problems. It only makes sense. He's getting older. A Quiet Place, the blockbuster horror film made for like a song, is making a shit ton of money in the United States. It made $50 million in its opening weekend. And a lot of people are already saying that John Krasinski and Emily Blunt, who are in that movie, should be playing Mr. Fantastic and the Invisible Woman when they do a new Fantastic Four movie in the MCU. I haven't seen the movie. I can only go by what everyone else is saying. And the funny thing about Emily Blunt is Emily Blunt was supposed to play Black Widow, and she was cast as Black Widow when something happened and she couldn't do it, and they ended up going with Scarlett Johansson. So we'll see what happens. Tiny robots created by MIT can fold itself from a flat sheet like into origami when heated, and it's controlled by magnetic waves. It's actually kind of a neat. They have a video of it, and it's really kind of cool to see. But it's interesting also that it's beginning the process of Transformers. Speaking of technology, actually, I will mention this real quick. Today was Christmas with my wife's Aunt Jean. She lives in Colorado, and she's made her way east, and we hadn't seen her since, God, summer of last year, maybe? I don't know. But, you know, she came bearing her Christmas gifts for everybody, and they all gave her her Christmas gifts, stuff like that. So we had a really nice day here in Baltimore. The last 2 days have been in the 80s. And you're like, oh, great. It looks like winter's finally over. Yeah, not so much. Tomorrow's going to be back in the 60s, 50s, 40s-ish. By Tuesday, it's going to be 40 again, rain, cold, stuff like that, and it's going to get back to more temperate temperatures. But you know what? May's come up soon, and soon enough, it's going to get warm. It's going to be summertime here, so I'm not worried about that. But one of the gifts, Aunt Jean likes to give the same gift to everybody, so it makes it easier for her instead of having to pick specific things and have to find out what people want and have to get all these different things. She gets the same thing for everybody, which is cool. I'm okay with that. So she got the grandkids all something that's pretty much the same thing. All the boys got Nerf guns and extra Nerf bullets, and the girls got a nice jumper and a squishy. And so she gave all the grown-ups, her nieces and nephews, their families, a Amazon Echo, which is also known as Alexa. I love Aunt Jean. I've known her for 18 years. I really didn't want an Alexa Echo. If I wanted an Alexa Echo, I would have bought one. I just don't want anything to do with Alexa. Am I going to change my mind? Maybe, but I really don't want to set it up. And I was just, really? That's what you got for us? Okay, that's great. Yeah, you have to pretend that you like it, and it's kind of tough to, but given the benefit of the doubt, it was a very nice gesture. It's not inexpensive, so it was nice of her. She didn't have to do that for us, but she did, and I guess it's okay. I just didn't really want one. but you can't always get what you want, as the Rolling Stones say. But the other thing I noticed about this is she's also trying to convince everybody to come see her out in Colorado, which I would love to do. I love Colorado. My wife's never been to Colorado. Well, they're planning a trip for sometime in July this year because, my mother-in-law is going to be heading out there. It's her sister. She needs to go see her out there. So she's trying to get her nieces to go out there and join them for a week or a couple days out in Colorado. So Dawn is probably going to head out there in July while I stay home with the kids. Kids will go to camp. I'll take them to camp, pick them up, because July is my busiest time at my job. And also just say real quick about my job. I'm working on a big project right now. I'm halfway done. My team is fantastic. I work in a place called Blind Industries, where they employ blind people or legally blind people. You can still see a little bit, but they have to hold stuff up to their face, stuff like that. And they also employ regular people also, but they make bottled water and they make notepads and they do all kinds of stuff. So that's good. But the one thing I did notice, we were playing a little bit of wiffle ball today, and my son Noah actually has a pretty good arm for a pitcher. He actually wanted to pitch a little bit, and he was getting the ball over the plate pretty good. While some of the other younger kids were not younger, he's the youngest, but some of his other cousins were having trouble getting it over the plate, type of thing. In the end, it was either myself, Dawn, or my brother-in-law Mike who ended up pitching to the kids. But Noah wanted to do it a few times, and he actually did a really, really good job getting it. And then some of the other of his cousins tried to do it; they just couldn't get it over the plate. So, is that a sign of anything? Yeah, not really, probably, but there's that. Finally, 2 more stories in my holiday thing. Tomorrow is Pokemon Go's Community Day for April. I've talked about Community Day. This is going to be the 4th one. It's when, for a 4 to 5 hour period, 2 to 5 p.m. tomorrow, Pokemon Go is going to release one specific Pokemon. In this case is Mareep, which is an electric sheep, and it has 2 other evolutions, and you'll be able to get more candies to get those evolutions because it's going to spawn like crazy. And you'll also be able to get shinies, which are different colored versions of those Pokemon, which they're not anything special, just to have a shiny. It doesn't have any extra powers or anything like that for being a shiny, but it's just for the people who want to be the collectors, who want to get them all, catch them all, whatever. They want the shinies. I hope I get more than I did last month. I only got 1 shiny. That was Bulbasaur. The month before that, in February, I got 3. And then in January, the first one with Pikachu, I got like 3 also. So I'm hoping for maybe 3. That way I can have 1 of each evolution. Actually, you probably need more than 3, because you want to have 1 for that, then you have to evolve it. That's 2. Then you have to evolve another one. That's 3. But then you need to have at least 5 to get that. So we'll see what happens. If you get at least 1 of them, that's good. You should get at least 1. What was I going to go with that? So it is Community Day, and then the final evolution of Mareep is called Amorphous or something like that. I can't remember what his name is. He's going to have a special move that you can only get during that 2 to 5 period. So you have to evolve 1 of those during that period to get that specific move that they have, which you will never get again. It's also during this time that they're doing a Kanto event, where Kanto is the Gen 1 Pokemon, so they're spawning like crazy also, and you get double candies for catching those, and they're releasing some that haven't really been out that much. So you got that going on. And then last week I talked a little bit about the research that they started for Pokemon Go, which will lead to you catching the mythological Mew. Well, I finished up my stuff yesterday. I caught my Mew, so I have a Mew now. So go me. My wife got one days before me, but that's besides the point. So if you are not a Pokemon Go fan, and we've always been interested in it, tomorrow's probably the best day to set up an account before 2 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. Set up an account, get your starter, and then just start going out there, and you'll be getting tons of Gen 1s spawning all over the place, and double candies enough that you'll be able to evolve more and more like that. And then during the Community Day event, you'll get a Gen 2 Mareep Electric Sheep and its various evolutions as well. And then you can just keep building stuff like up like that. So that's pretty cool. And then you'll also get involved in the research. You might be able to get a Mew also if you start working at it. So if you've never done Pokemon Go and you've been interested in thinking about it or whatever, you should try it. Absolutely. Let me just look this up real quick. I found this on Facebook the other day. I thought it was kind of clever. And I've done stories like this before where they took actors from a specific decade and said, hey, what if the Avengers was filmed during the 1990s? Who do you think would be the characters who would be the Avengers characters from the list of the hot 1990s actors? And they made a list of them the other day. I'm seeing if I can find it right here to tell you who they should be. I don't know if I'm going to be able to cross over to Comic Call. I'm going to have to. Sorry, it's taking me a while. I got to find this. I probably should have found this first before I started doing the show. So after this, we'll do my Check I Day, and then we'll get the hell out of Dodge. And then just stay tuned, and I'll do my Comic Call show. Where are you, 90s? Should be coming up any minute now. There it is. Yay. So if the Avengers was made in the 1990s, here are the actors who they were anticipating would be in the roles that we know from the Avengers. Now, bear in mind that characters like the Winter Soldier, stuff like that, and a black Nick Fury did not occur until the 21st century. But at this point, they're just saying, hey, what if all that stuff had happened? And these are the actors that we would have picked to be in these movies. And remember, these are all actors who some might be washed up, or you're like, really? That person? This was during the 90s when they were fairly popular at their pinnacle or whatever. So first up, they have Captain America is Brad Pitt. That's an excellent casting. I think it's a great idea. John Stamos is the Winter Soldier. I can see that also. Eddie Murphy is the Falcon. I can see that too. He wasn't quite the Eddie Murphy of the 80s. He was starting a downward decline there, but he'd still be pretty good. Alicia Silverstone as Scarlet Witch. Christian Slater as Hawkeye. Matthew Broderick as Ant-Man. Cuba Gooding Jr. as War Machine. Ethan Hawke as Vision. Denzel Washington as Black Panther. This is my favorite casting of all. Mila Jovovich as Black Widow. I think that is excellent casting. Leonardo DiCaprio as Spider-Man. Tom Cruise as Iron Man, which makes a lot of sense because he originally was one of the people that they were going to approach about that. This one I'm not so sure because I don't think Dolph Lundgren was a huge 90s character, but he fits the Thor mode, so Dolph Lundgren as Thor. David Duchovny as the Hulk. Remember, he's kind of the nerdy scientist type. That would be pretty good, I think. This one I'm a little hesitant about, but it could be interesting. Keanu Reeves as Doctor Strange. Maybe. Doctor Strange is kind of that weird, whacked out sort of character, and Matrix-y kind of stuff, maybe. Keith David playing Nick Fury. This is good casting also. I love this casting also. Gary Oldman as Loki. I think that's fantastic casting. Ron Perlman as Thanos. Winona Ryder as Mantis, which was good because she was young at that time. Arnold Schwarzenegger as Drax. Why not? Joe Pesci as the voice of Rocket Raccoon. That's freaking a great idea also. Gamora played by Halle Berry, and Nebula played by Demi Moore, and Star-Lord played by Brendan Fraser. Those are all, I think, a really good casting for the 90s, and I think they did a pretty good job with that. So on that note, we're going to end the episode with what I always do, my Check I Day stuff. For those who don't know, every day is literally a holiday. There's multiple holidays that takes place in every day. And so every day is a holiday, literally. So there's a website and a Twitter account called Check I Day, which talks about what these specific holidays are. So today, April 14th, the specific holidays are, and I'll do a couple from a few days ago, and I'll do tomorrow's. Baby Massage Day, Children with Alopecia Day, Dreams of Reason Feast Day, Ex-Spouse Day, International Moment of Laughter Day, Look Up at the Sky Day, National Dolphin Day, National Pecan Day, Pan American Day, Pathologist Assistance Day, Reach as High as You Can Day, Slow Art Day, and that's all today. Yesterday was, besides Friday the 13th, was Blame Someone Else Day, International Skeptics Day, National Peach Cobbler Day, Scrabble Day, Thomas Jefferson Day. April 12th is Wear a Star Day, Big Win Day, Drop Everything and Read Day, International Day for Street Children, International Day of Human Spaceflight, National Grilled Cheese Sandwich Day, National Licorice Day, National Only Child Day, Russian Cosmonaut Day, Support Teen Literature Day, Walk on Your Wild Side Day. April 11th, which was Wednesday, was Barbershop Quartet Day, International Louie Louie Day, National Bookmobile Day, National Cheese Fondue Day, National 8-Track Tape Day, National Pet Day, School Librarians Day, Submarine Day, World Parkinson's Disease Day. So tomorrow we have, which is basically in 15 minutes. Tomorrow is World Art Day, Titanic Remembrance Day. Okay, that's right. Titanic sank on the 15th. Take a Wild Guess Day. National That Sucks Day. Awesome. National Rubber Eraser Day. National Gripers Day. National Glazed Spiral Ham Day. Micro Volunteering Day. McDonald's Day. Jackie Robinson Day, where everybody's going to wear the number 42 on the baseball field. Good Deeds Day. And Go Fly a Kite Day. So that is your Check Eye Day. That is your Dylan Knows show, and that's all I got for right now. Next week is going to be interesting because next week I have an Oriole game, but I should be back in time in the evening. It's a 4:05 game, so I should be back by 8 o'clock, and so I should be able to do a regular show at the regular time on Saturday. Sunday, we're going to Hershey Park next Sunday, so I can't do it then. And then the weekend after that is Avengers Infinity Day, and hopefully I'll get MJ Khan on and maybe get Jerry on to do a double that weekend. So we'll see. On that, stay tuned for the crossover episode of the Comic Hall coming up in about 3 minutes or so, however long it takes to make it. So bye-bye now. So bye.